good afternoon from Kampala, and a very warm welcome to you, our participants today, but even a bigger welcome to you, our esteemed panel. And this afternoon, we are going to be having this webinar, which is about building resilient law firms in the face of the 21st century challenges and disruptions. And when we talk about these challenges and disruptions, we are looking at the challenges of COVID-19 as it is, and even those that we envisage post-COVID-19. There are also the challenges and the disruptions that have been brought about by technology. And for this reason, the EALS East African Law Society Managing Partners Forum has organized this webinar. This webinar is organized under the EALS Leading Law Firms Forum as a series of engagements with lawyers and law firms across the region. And this afternoon, we have a very carefully selected panel, very esteemed speakers that are going to share their experiences and the lessons that they've learned in the course of their practice, drawing from the challenges and the disruptions that have come with the times. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Eva Kentaro, and I'm the managing partner of Kentaro Mugiran Company Advocates, a law firm here in Kampala, and I'll have the privilege and honor of being your moderator this afternoon. Allow me to introduce our esteemed panel this afternoon. Our first panelist is from the Republic of Tanzania, Council Sadak. Council Sadak Magai is over there.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sadok. Allow me to very briefly talk about your profile. Sadok Magai is the managing partner and the head of banking and the finance department at IMMA Advocates. Sadok has been consistently recommended by the IFLR 1000 and Chambers and Partners as a leading lawyer in Tanzania. Sadok is highly experienced in drafting all phases of commercial loan documentation, including loan facility agreements, mortgages, debentures, and security sharing agreements. His practice includes debt capital markets, transactional banking, and corporate finance. Welcome, Sadok.
Thank you, Eva, for inviting me, and thank you for my brief bio, which you have just said. I don't want to repeat my experience because I have 20 minutes, as I was told yesterday by Sigano. So it goes straight to my sharing my experience on this topic, which is about pandemics and other unforeseen events, leveraging.
I'm sorry, Sadok, I'm going to cut you short there. We have a program, so if you'll allow me, I'll introduce all the panelists, and then we will run that by the program as it is. Actually, so I'll ask you to share screen of the program that we are going to be running with today for the benefit of our panelists, but also our participants. Our next panelist I will introduce is Mr. Apollo Makubuya. Mr. Apollo Makubuya is from Uganda. Mr. Apollo Makubuya is a senior partner in corporate advisory at Max Advocates in Kampala, which is one of the leading firms here in Kampala. Mr. Apollo Makubuya advises companies, banks, regional and international investors on tax issues. He has extensive experience in the area of international human rights. And before he went into private practice, he was a lecturer at the University of, the Faculty of Law, Makerere University. Apollo Makubuya is a graduate from Cambridge University and holds a first-class bachelor's degree, law degree from Makerere University. And on another note, Mr. Apollo Makubuya was one of my first employers, so it's nice to see you here, Mr. Apollo Makubuya. Our next panelist I will introduce is Miss Molly Regamba. Miss Molly Regamba from Rwanda. Welcome, Molly. Miss Molly is a managing partner of RR Associates.
Thank you.
And Molly is a director with Kenya Commercial Bank, Rwanda. She has over 15 years experience in legal and private sector expertise and has previously served as the CEO of Rwanda's Private Sector Foundation. Molly is a has been vice chair of Rwanda's Capital Markets Authority and serves on various boards in Rwanda. She holds a Bachelor of Law from National University of Rwanda and a master's in international and comparative law from Sweden's Uppsala University. Welcome, Molly. Our next panelist is Mr. Abdul Jumbura, Burundi, and he's the founding partner of Trust Juris Chambers. He has a rich and varied experience on legal matters in Belgium, France, Tanzania, Rwanda, and Burundi, including international business law, corporate and commercial restructuring, and insolvency. He holds a postgraduate degree in OHADA Business Law, second prize, from a university in France. He has a master's in law, private law with honors from Marseille University in France, and he was admitted to the bar in Bujumbura in 2015. Our other panelists that we have today is Mr. Phillips Anyang. Phillips Anyang is currently a partner at Anyang and Partners in South Sudan, Juba, and is heavily involved in providing legal advice to clients in matters related to banking and finance, arbitration, corporate and commercial law. Welcome, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you.
Good to have you here. As you can see, our panelists are well represented from each country in the region. And I'm also going to introduce our president, the President, East African Law Society. Mr. President, very warm welcome to you. The President, Mr. Bernard Owundo, needs very little introduction. He's the President of East Africa Law Society. He's a partner with Citadel Advocates. He's a legal consulting firm in Uganda that specializes in project finance, public-private partnership, legal advisory services. Before starting out in legal practice, he had an illustrious career in the public sector, which spanned over 10 years as a legal advisor in the privatization unit. Bernard is a passionate advocate for mentoring and the development of young talent through specialization and skills-based learning and development. And one of the core objectives of his presidency is to empower female membership of the EALS with knowledge and skills needed to enable them to become stakeholders in the regional economy and to successfully achieve more political and social recognition and inclusivity. Welcome, Mr. President. Mr. President, allow me, I will now hand over to you to introduce our keynote speaker. And after you've introduced our keynote speaker, you'll make your opening remarks and then invite our keynote speaker to speak. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Eva, for your kind introduction. Welcome, East Africa. Habari. It's again an exciting opportunity to host another webinar where we discuss how to build resilient law firms, especially in the face of the 21st century challenges and disputes. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to thank our panelists who have made time to share their thoughts with us on how to build back better in the face of the global pandemic. My role today is simple, is to introduce Honorable Chacha Odera. He has a very long CV, so I'll ask Akils to share his profile so I can read it for the members. While Akils shares his profile, I'll tell you that he is a senior partner with Aurora & Company Advocates. He is a distinguished lawyer. He's won several awards, both at Chambers and Partners and all other global awards. When you meet him in person, you'll surely have a nice laugh. So he's humorous, and I always enjoy having a discussion with him. Chacha has been ranked by leading international legal directories such as Chambers and Partners and Legal 500 as a leading lawyer in dispute resolution and employment. In the Chambers Global Guide 2021 rankings, he received a plethora of praise from the Kenyan legal community, with market observers regarding him as an extremely able advocate and a gentleman in all manner of the world. Chacha was also recognized as the overall lawyer of the year in 2019 at the National Legal Awards hosted by the Law Society of Kenya. He holds a Bachelor's of Laws degree from the University of Nairobi and a diploma in law from the Kenya Law School. Aside from his legal practice, he's an adjunct lecturer at the Strathmore Law School. He has chaired two ad hoc committees of the Law Society of Kenya, namely the Committee for In-House Counsel and the development of a comprehensive code of conduct for advocates. He has also served in various capacities in the Political Parties Dispute Tribunal and the Council of Legal Education. I will also mention, since I'm a Rotarian, that he's also an honorary member of the Rotary Club of Milimani, as well as a Paul Harris Fellow, and previously served as a founding trustee of the Matiba Boo Foundation and the Sada Kenya Trust. Please welcome with me, Honorable Chacha. And without wasting any further time, let me ask you to actually give us your keynote speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for those kind words. Sometimes when people describe me, I'm not too sure they're talking about me, but I always take it as said in good, in good stead. And thank you very much. Mr. President, fellow panelists, and members of East African Law Society, I must say that I'm extremely honored to be asked to give a keynote address in these very difficult times. Indeed, when I was thinking about what to talk about, I realized that this is a very new area in which none of us can boast of any experience. For just over 1 year, we have been ravaged by a completely new phenomenon, which has swept right across the globe. And one would say it is the worst pandemic we've experienced in living history. Prior to the present pandemic that we are experiencing, history tells us that there was the Spanish flu, which ran between February 1918 and April 1920. The death toll in that particular pandemic was estimated in the neighborhood of 15 million people. With respect to the present pandemic, the present global death toll is estimated at 3 million and rising. The difference between the Spanish flu pandemic and the present pandemic is that what we hear about the Spanish pandemic is really the death toll. But with respect to the present coronavirus pandemic, we are not just talking about the cost to human lives and health, but we are going further and analyzing the effect that it has on businesses, and more specifically, in our case, our legal practice. The challenges are novel, and the best we can do at this particular moment is to share our experiences of how we've been able or are trying to navigate through this pandemic. Every time I speak to fellow practitioners, whether within my jurisdiction, that is Nairobi, or out of Kenya, the story is the same. We are all trying as we go on to find out how best we can deal with this pandemic. But lesson learned out of what we've gone through in the last year or so is that gone are the days when we would run a law firm by merely rolling along. We now are constrained and we are forced to take time out, step back, and plan how are we going to manage the days coming ahead. So as one can say, we can no longer roll on the wheels of inevitability. We must be purposeful and we must be able to plan as to what tomorrow portends for us, rather than let tomorrow plan for us. And it is in that context and background that the topic of today becomes extremely relevant. How do we build a resilient law firm? And in so doing, it is my hope that as we discuss, we will not just focus on the problems of today or the problems of tomorrow, but we will be able to discuss how we will be able to move on even post-corona. Indeed, one of the problems, or one of the things which are lost to many of us, is that we've always thought that the the problem of Corona is living it. There will be a bigger problem of recovering from it. And even as we deal with how we navigate through it while with us, let's also discuss how we will recover from the problems that have been precipitated by this pandemic. In building a resilient law firm, my thoughts were that one must be able to look at the various facets that needs to be addressed. And what immediately came to my mind was that we need to talk about financial resilience. We need to talk about operational resilience. We need to talk about commercial and client resilience. And finally, and most importantly, about people resilience. And in this respect, we are talking about our clients and potential clients. When it comes to financial resilience, because ultimately all these things, the operations, the commercial client, and the people, all funnel into finance. There's need to improve on them. And part of my experience is that the slowdown of the economy, which has been precipitated by this pandemic, has made it difficult for people to honor the obligations, especially when it comes to payment of services. Amongst those regular clients who on an ordinary day pays their bills, they've also now been joined by those clients who usually don't pay bills, but are now using Corona as an excuse for not paying bills. So in that respect, and in my experience within my firm, we have looked at it in two ways. One, looking at the revenue inflows, and as against it, managing the outflows, that is managing costs. In looking at the revenue inflows, whereas in the past we would just send fee notes and wait for their settlement, right now what we are doing is we are building our reserves by not only billing, but by keeping and tracking a record of payment. And indeed, we do have my firm, we are divided in 5 teams. In every team, there is one person whose job is merely to look at how we are doing in terms of billing and fees collection. Indeed, at a meeting I had with my fellow lawyers at the beginning of this pandemic, I reminded them that just like in a lottery, you can't win a lottery if you don't buy the ticket. Similarly, in legal practice, you cannot be paid your fees if you don't raise the fee note. So that has become an extremely important aspect of managing a brief. And the shame that we used to sometimes, or the embarrassment we used to have in picking up the phone and calling a client and asking them what's happened to our fees, that is no longer with us, because at the end of the day, we must not only meet our expenses, our running expenses of today, but we must be able to build a reserve to tow us over not just Corona, but through the recovery period. The other thing which we've had to look at in terms of financial resilience is the question of managing costs. Managing costs has been addressed in various ways. There are, when we started, when the first Corona case was announced in Kenya, that was on 13th of March last year, on a Friday, and on that Monday, 16th, we made a decision that we will, as much as possible, encourage people to work from home. And that meant that less people were coming to the office. And I think I had a landlord who was cleverer than all of us. He realized that probably the next step we'll reach when we'll tell him we don't need all this space. Our landlord is the church, the Anglican Church of Kenya. And they called me for a meeting. And I thought they were calling me for purposes of expressing concern whether we'll be able to pay rent going forward. But interestingly, what they told us is we would like to reduce your rent. And they were able to give us a reduction of 30%. Considering us as the anchor tenant in their building, I would say that was a really good, gesture in confronting this pandemic together. The other issue, of course, is the operational resilience, which one must build. And in operations, we must also embrace technology and have a plan, what we call a business continuity plan. How do we continue existing and conducting our business in the face of all these shutdowns, in the face of all these closures, in the face of our inability to congregate at our regular places in which we carry out our business? Commercial and client resilience is another thing which we had to look at. And that was, how do we keep in touch with our clients? How do we assure our clients that even if we are not working from the office, we are able to deliver on their instructions from wherever we are? Happily for us, and I'm not saying that it is out of us being any cleverer than any person, but it was more of a sleek salesperson who once came to our offices and sold us a system, an ERP system, which now enabled us, that was about 5 years ago, but that enabled us to be able to access our office from wherever we were, any part of the globe. So for us to transition from the office to home was not with any disruption. And that has also helped us in terms of conducting our litigation. And it's an ongoing process in which we keep on improving and keep on investing. The other issue, which of course, regarding clients, we have to strengthen is our business development department, which, whereas many people were cutting costs on many aspects, our business development department was a key pillar in ensuring, one, business continuity and being there when recovery time comes around. People resilience, that's the HR aspect. The people, at the end of the day, our staff are the most important resource that we have. And other than assuring them that we will overcome, we had to work closely with them, keep them informed, look out to them in terms of health and safety, and be able to have regular contact meetings, whether at team level, at partnership level, at staff level. And that was, we're able to do that as a result of embracing technology. We didn't have to gather in the office to carry out that, that particular aspect of looking after our people. The only thing we couldn't do, as an office, we do have a monthly get together in the morning. I always call it the assembly, and we usually cut cake together. I believe for the more religious people, you'd call it breaking bread, but we would have it every morning, and I mean, once a month, and we would have a place where we used to do in school. This time I am called the headmaster, and I make announcements and we discuss things. Though in school we were not, it wasn't so much of an interactive session, but that one we can no longer have as a result of the social distancing. Having seen that, and as I said earlier, the most important thing is not just navigating through this particular crisis and pandemic, but what do we do post the corona pandemic? We have recognized that there's been a lot of changes in society. The operating environment has changed. And this relates to things stretching from global economic structure, global mobility, the dispute resolution mechanism. For a long time, we have been trying to get our judiciary to embrace technology. They have been resisting it, but in this particular case, they've had to embrace it. The changes have also brought about greater government participation and regulatory participation. We as people who run law firms have also been called upon that we also must be more sensitive than we were before in terms of healthcare, in terms of wellness of the people we work with, not just within the office, but their families, and also our clients. Business digitalization has become very important because technology is the platform which now we have to use in terms of driving the business. Virtual workforces, as I mentioned earlier, we are mainly working from home, and on any given day, we only have 20% of our people reporting in the office. We had planned to reopen on the 22nd of March, and then we had the third spike, the third wave, and it would have been very reckless of us to open operations during that particular time. There have been changes, things like social boundaries, education transformation, like this particular education forum that we're having. Ideally, we should have been having it, the president would have been hosting us either in Arusha or in any of the other capitals of the member states. But now we have to contend using this platform in order to exchange views and to hold conferences. The role of clients have also been recognized as something which we shouldn't lose touch of. Even as we social distance, we must continuously keep in touch with clients. And one must be proactive, be able to not only wait for problems to arise, but also give clients advice. Especially in our firm, the advisory aspect of it has greatly improved. And in that respect, we've had a lot of advisory work coming from labor and employment. We've had a lot of advisory work coming from insolvency and restructuring. Health law is also becoming an area which we are being asked to advise on. Insurance is also an area. And with the emerging technology, the question of privacy and data security has also become a big thing. So how do we operate? What do we have to do in order to survive, and not only survive, but thrive through future disruptions? One, I would say and propose, build a war chest. And a war chest is in terms of building your reserves so that if a client doesn't walk through your front door, the question you ought to ask yourself is, how long can we survive without payment of any fees? At the time when we started our practice over the years, we have been working in terms of building our reserves. And at one point, we thought that building reserves to a tune of having savings of up to 9 months to 1 year would be sufficient. But with what we are going through now, we really must look at it. And it's not something which any person can prescribe for any other person. Every person knows how much, how long they can survive and how much they need to put aside for purposes of surviving during difficult period. In building economic resilience, of course, we must look at financial management. The days when we would spend money without asking ourselves whether it is necessary in the first place, they're long gone. We must question every single expenditure. We must look at areas in which we can save money. And opposite that, we must also find out ways, how do we increase our revenue income? And that has become an extremely important aspect of our practice. Client positioning is another thing we must look into. We must be alive to the fact that post-corona, we must still have clients, and you must position yourself that you work with your clients during this difficult time, and hopefully they'll remember you when things get back to normal. Management and leadership is another very important thing. Indeed, for a long time, I literally ran this firm single-handedly as a managing partner with an assistance of a deputy managing partner. But when Corona began, we divided the firm into various little committees which were charged with specific aspects of the firm, so we can have a much closer contact with what is happening within the firm, take into account that we're all working away from home. And we would then have one equity partnership meeting through which all these many small committees of equity partners would report into the partnership. And that gave us a much clearer visibility of what was happening within the office. And in leadership, it wasn't just the usual question or the traditional leader. It was a question of also empathy, being able to reach out to members of staff, picking up the call and calling anybody at random, just finding out from them, how are you doing? How are things on your side? And that really made a huge, huge difference. So strategically going forward, we need to have a clear sense of purpose, vision, and strategy. We must embrace technology, innovation. Internal processes must be improved. and capability in key practice areas must be looked into. Through this journey, we will do things right. And where we do right, we will continue doing them right post the corona pandemic. But where we go wrong, it will always be a lesson of how not to do certain things. So in either way, whether you do it right or wrong, it is a whole life lesson. And it is my hope that this conversation that we will have with the panelists will be able to shed more light and be able to educate each one of us so that when we leave this afternoon session, we will be more the richer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Councillor Chacha. Councillor Chacha, that was a very, very, very good presentation. And I particularly like the part where you said, gone are the days of running along the wheels of inevitability. We cannot let tomorrow plan for us. And I think that the pandemic definitely has made us realize that we cannot live each day as it comes, but we must be able to plan for the future. You also categorized the areas that we must build resilience in. We talked about the operational, the commercial, the client, and more importantly, the people resilience. Inevitably, we must build a war chest. Thank you very much, Councillor Chacha. So now I'm going to invite our panelists to speak to us about the different areas that they were assigned. Panelists, we have 10 minutes each panelist, and 10 minutes for you to share experiences in those specific areas that were assigned. Our first speaker, our first panelist is going to be Molly Regamba. Molly, you are going to talk to us about maintaining efficiency and workflow during disruptions, best human resource and client care practices. And I know that your presentation is going to even give us more insights on the areas of resilience that Honorable Chacha talked about. Clients, people, resilience. Over to you, Molly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eva, and thank you, Chacha. That was very informative, and actually it makes our work easier in terms of you've given us a headway on the key areas that we need to talk about. Maybe before I go to the issues of efficiency during this period of disruptions, and focus mostly on human resource and client practice and clients, I would like to focus on a broader perspective, what we've learned from this pandemic. And one of the things that we've learned is to always prepare for uncertainties. I don't think I'm one of those people who are good converts of saving, but this has really taught us so much in terms of looking ahead and planning ahead. And we've also realized, I think Chacha has indicated to us, even planning, most law firms or most businesses plan 6 to 1 month, to 1 year ahead. But we've seen that we actually need to plan even 2 years ahead in terms of building reserves, in terms of business development, in terms of the general perspective in which you can run a firm or a business. But it has also taught us to embrace technology from a wider perspective. Even before the pandemic began, we're all talking of digitizing our operations, our businesses. There's AI that is coming, artificial intelligence, and the future of lawyers sometimes is questioned in terms of if AI has to replace, physical lawyers, what happens? So these are things that the pandemic has taught us to actually think further and even think beyond or out of the box. Now, the pandemic has also taught us that we need to diversify. I think Chacha talked about it. What I mean by diversification, you find sometimes law firms just based maybe on litigation or commercial transactions or corporate finance, or these areas. But other than that, what else can we do? There's a broader, we've seen, for example, legislative drafting. That is an area that lawyers never look into. Who develops all these laws for government? Now, of course, that also comes with training. So if you think ahead, you train to ensure that your team is well versed to actually embrace some of these new opportunities. Because as much as we lose opportunities somewhere else, there are always opportunities that are opening up somewhere else. So I was talking about legislative drafting. There's also a new area, arbitration. I remember during the pandemic when we were on total lockdown in Rwanda, I think we went into lockdown around mid-March to mid-May or end of May, I don't remember. For that whole period, there was no litigation. So you wonder if there were, if someone who was purely generating income based on cases, what would happen to them? So I think it's important that we diversify. So there's arbitration, but also look at new areas that have come up just because of the pandemic. I'm calling him Dr. Councillor Chacha talked about it. And some of these areas are data privacy, because now all things are done online, financial transactions. Now this is an area, data security is going to be very big. So as a lawyer, where do you see yourself playing in that space? Then also, there are new areas like there's artificial intelligence, of course, healthcare, environment. So I think it's important for us to think about diversification if you have to run an effective and resilient law firm. Now, back to the specific issues that I was told to address, especially on human resources and clients. How do you ensure efficiency, especially during disruptions? I've already talked about embracing technology, and you'll see that even after post-COVID, this is going to be our lifestyle. Things of fancy and big offices, I think those are things that might be in the past. So how you build your technology, how you use technology as an enabler for business is going to be very important. And we've also seen this, Chacha talked about their solution, but also embracing solutions like case management solutions. Those ones are cheap to get. And then ensure that you have connectivity for all your staff wherever they might be. So if someone travels, they're able to actually to continue working. Now, as far as human resources is concerned, you know that we've all gone through a difficult time, whether it's mentally, physically. Some people have lost their loved ones. Before we started this call, Chacha was telling us, I think we had lost about 50 lawyers. And Tanzania, there's a time we were getting so many reports from Tanganyika about the lawyers that have passed away. So this has taken really a big toll on the human resource. And when I talk about human resource, I talk about all of us, including the associates, including the support staff we have. So how do you create resiliency and efficiency during these tough times? I think one of the first important things is to ensure that you have collective decision-making as a firm. And when I mean collective, Chacha also mentioned it, how they tried to engage the various teams on various issues. But I remember when we were about 2 months into the pandemic, I was like, how are we going to continue, sustaining the payroll if this pandemic continues, if we're in lockdown for 3-4 months? And the only thing you do is throw back to the associates and the support staff and request them and ask them, so what solution can we have? And interestingly, if you have built that interpersonal personal relationship with the colleagues, the kind of solutions that come up are really supportive. So some were ready to forego their salaries. Of course, that didn't happen. Like part of their salaries, that didn't happen. But I saw that happening even because when you see like the tourism side around, especially the hotel and especially the tourism sector, hotels, tourism, conferencing, etc. All those have been affected. So they can't keep full-time staff, and even for the full-time staff, they have to reduce them. So collective decision-making is something that is very key, but also creating deliverables among your staff members. So long gone are the days where, working men coming to the office 8 to 5 and just showing up.
We seem to have lost Councillor Molly. I noticed her bandwidth was low during this call, but I think that she has raised, is she back? Molly, Councillor Molly?
Yes, you lost me. My internet, these are the disruptions that we've been talking about. I hope it doesn't go off before I finish again. So I hope you had the last bit that I had said about creating clear deliverables. Maybe let me be a little bit fast. And then also decentralizing work. I think this Chacha also mentioned. Decentralize your work streams to the extent that even the lowest junior partner can be able to interact with a client. So if, for example, a junior partner interacts with a client, they gain ownership. You don't even have to follow up to see if they've actually delivered. So that kind of engagement, first of all, it will give you about three positives. The first one, you will have empowered them. The second one, they'll gain ownership of the whole assignment and be accountable. And the third one, it's also some sort of capacity building. So that helps us to, if you enable associates to do that, then the burden goes off, but also it creates efficiency. So we can get anything that you'd like them. I think those were the main ones, but the most important thing during this time now is, I think Chacha also mentioned it, creating a culture of empathy, whether it's from up, down, or between associates, because understand everybody at an individualized level, because people are going through different things. I remember when the pandemic started, I had this anxiety that I don't know where it came from. I felt like everything is going to come to a standstill. So you imagine everybody else going through that, that doesn't create any positive outcomes. So I think the most important thing here is to create a culture of empathy, being your neighbor's keeper and looking out for so once you create that sense of empathy and family, then you'll definitely get efficiency, especially for us. I know I'm running out of time. Let me tackle on the client bits quickly. Our clients, of course, are the reason why we live. And they've also gone through difficult times, especially when you see clients have come to us filing for insolvency, some have laid off their staff, and so tough times. Now, if a client is going through a tough time, this is the time to actually handhold them. Eva, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So because I saw your faces were frozen, so I thought probably my internet was unstable. So I was still telling you about the clients. This is a tough time for the clients as well. As much as we are affected, the clients are also affected. And this is the best time to handhold them. A client who is not able to pay, but has potential to pay in a few months, give them all the services that you should give them. And once they're out of this, definitely you'll be one of their heroes. And then ensure that there's a focal person for each client, so that a client will never lose out on any urgent thing, especially during this difficult time. I know just like doctors, sometimes lawyers get a lot of work when others are in crisis. So during this pandemic, I know clients who are contacting us, they wanted to lay off people, some wanted to restructure loans, someone wanted to list. So all these things, make sure that money is not the first thing that you put forward. Build that relationship with your client. Of course, you have to survive, but at the end of the day, I think we need to see how to support our clients, whether there is money or not. And of course, once you do this, you create reliability, and this will help in the long run. I think I won't talk about billing because Chacha talked about it. I think mostly that's what I wanted to share with you. From a client perspective, if there's any other questions that will come out from the participants, I'll be ready to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Molly, for that insight and sharing experiences in the area of HR, human resources, and client care. More importantly, I think you've given us the understanding that even for the internal resources, the staff that we have, they are also clients in some sense, but also they have also very good input to make in terms of the operations and how the firm will be able to pull through the times. Thank you very much, Councillor Molly. We are now going to move to Councillor Sadok Magai. I would like to remind our panelists we have 10 minutes each. So Councillor Sadok Magai, please take us through the pandemic and other unforeseen events, leveraging on partnerships, both local and international, for survival. Over to you, Councillor Sadok.
Thank you, Eva. And again, thank you for inviting me to talk on this webinar. And I thank my colleagues who are participating, both the panelists and those who are listening to us. As you already said, my topic is about the pandemics and other unforeseen events, leveraging on a partnership, local and international, for survival. Yes, EMADWORK is part of New Piper global firm, but we are also a membership in Africa, which is in 22 countries. So yearly we have international partnership, which we work together very closely. But going back to the topic, it may be specific. There has been talking about pandemics. I think people will be always go to the current situation what we are facing, which is COVID-19. But I will also talk about other two aspects of which I call also pandemic, which is apart from the COVID-19, which we all know, but in perspective for Tanzania and your experience, I will talk also about the economic, change in economic policies of a government in a day, which can also disrupt the business, especially for not only for lawyers, but for everybody, including our clients. And the two, I also talk about personal incidences whereby affairs may be one, you may be a natural calamity like fire, accident, sometimes also terrorist act happening to your office, which can also hinder the operation, the provision of services to our clients. So maybe start with the first one, which is a particular wave which we have interests and which is about about changing policies. Forget about the pandemics first, because everybody has been talking about COVID-19. So it's a song which has been heard by everybody. Now let me talk or divert a bit by talking about the disruption which comes by changing policy. Way back in 2017, 2015, when we had the 51st government Tanzania coming into power, into leadership, the government of the day made it very clear that it was not ready, it was not interested in working again with private practitioners when it comes to government delivery of services, both in traffic. I'm talking specifically on the legal sector. It was also affecting other sectors, other service providers, but specifically for legal sector, it made a big impact to us, because some of the government is always as a big pair. It is a lot of work, a lot of legal work. As someone was saying, it involves takes through not only about litigation, arbitration, but also regulatory registration, devising on a different laws, policies, which really can attract good fees to lawyers. So this was a major disruption in our country. And I know that, some of our colleagues closed shop because of the change in policy by the government of the day. So it was real, and it is still going on. And we saw huge firms which had been in the practice even before we came in, closing shops because of the change of the policy of the day of the government. I don't want to mention names, but I think some of you, like Chacha, should know who I'm talking about, the firms which opened a shop, closed a shop because of this. So this is something. What is the solution for this? My experience is, as my colleague talked about, it is about the only I think survival which can make a firm sail through such a disruption is when you have proper diversification of your practice. So I agree with the previous speaker that we need to diversify our practice. So for us, it also helped us a lot because of diversification. Another thing which also is a concern to my colleagues, which also we noted, is also our clients. Because of the change of the government, there was also disruption on the operation of our clients. Some of our clients were really attacked, and they could not even be able to pay fees on time. And also the operations were highly disrupted. So it also depends on you, how you organize yourself. How do you really stand there to really work together with the client to also for the client to sail through, so that you can continue working for the client, and as well as the client paying at the time, paying you the fees. We cannot work for free. And sometimes some clients had their accounts frozen. So these are challenges. And but I think for that, my view is be close to a client. You will talk, you understand. You can, in certain cases, can even assist maybe to also for us, we even help our clients to pay salaries on a separate account for their employees, because their accounts, the operational accounts, which ordinarily they were using to pay their employees, were frozen by the authorities. So I think the message there is, as I said by Chacha and other panelists, that to be close to a client to understand the problems. And I think within the pipe global firm, we have a philosophy or a value that you should be close, understand the business of your client, and also you should be studying and understand the problems your client is facing, so that you can really deliver the services and to satisfaction of the client at any given time. So this one I want to share with you as a disruption, apart from the other two. The other one is personal. Like in 2017, I was attacked. The office was almost was to be burnt, but fortunately the building survived. So what helped us by then is it has been talked a lot, technology. by the time we are attacked by an unknown as I see today, the next it was on Saturday night, and we were to go continue working on a Monday morning, and we got a lot of calls from people asking us whether our files have been destroyed, whether we could work on a Monday, whatever. But two things which I want to share you made us survive. One is that we have already automated our system on a Microsoft Office 365, which really allows you to use cloud to access your documents. So this is IT again, as people have been talking about, investing in technology, which really helped us. So that on the following Monday, we were up and running, working as usual. I think so. I cannot underestimate. Really, technology is the solution of the day, of today. And every firm, every lawyer, even if you are a single practitioner, whatever, I think is better. It's only that you really invest in technology. Make sure that you automate at least you automate your business in order to make sure that when there is because in the past, people used to have disaster recovery centers, maybe physical, maybe production or prototype files. You cannot do that these days. When it's just put in clouds and then you will recover your documents. Two, as I said earlier on, I think our lesson when it came to our personal attack on the bidding was that we are also being close to our clients pays a lot. And I think confidence in you by clients will normally protect you even when you were calamities like what happened to us. And this I say because the moment our clients learned about us being attacked, we had a lot of calls offering us office spaces. And some of them were completely furnished. Like the office we moved in. We moved in with office which was completely furnished and with no deposit from us. Plus just go in, do your work, and then we'll talk later on. No, we had no even lease agreement signed. So I think the only experience I can share with you is that being close to a client, I mean working together and creating a partnership and a friendship to clients. Even if a client pays you, we also help you in times of disruption, like it happened to us. Now, but again, the underlying experience there is also investing in technology. But somebody will be talking about human resources. It is very, very to me, my experience is that, you must, as a firm, must invest both in training and the trust of your people. Here I'm talking about not only about your colleagues, partners, about your associates, but also supporting staff. We have also big supporting staff. This makes them to understand when you are facing problems. Someone was talking about even talking to associates or to decrease their salaries. I think if we have a trust, you have your associates and supporting staff, understanding the nature of your business and also the treatment which you've been giving them, gives them a room to understand the business. They will support you, whatever the circumstance. For us, when we are moving, for example, on the day we were attacked, the next day, staff came in, they were carrying their staff on their own cost. Nobody was requesting for any money for transportation, whatever. And nobody even, you could see togetherness because of, I think, the teamwork which have developed over time. So I think it is something which, as a firm, as business people, we should take care of for our people. We have the pandemic issue, the COVID, and our experience has been one. We really are, during the hard times, we have been benefiting out of a relationship with the international, our colleagues offshore, because we have been getting a lot of referrals at us in areas which were not even there. For example, somebody was talking about diversification, And I can share with you that, you know, if you diversify, you can even work on areas which you are not, normally have not been working on, but they come and then we have already expertise in place where you can give solutions. Pharmaceuticals in Tanzania were not so much of a practice which someone could make money, but we had a lot of inquiry in that area during the pandemic, and which we rendered advice from our offshore clients, colleagues who referred clients to us, because one, some of them want to bring in medicine, they want to bring, ask questions, what are the rules of the game, what permits are required, whatever. And so it was something with an area which was very new to us, but which we had prepared already for that. And it was easy for us to really help assist our colleagues, clients, and also clients who offshore clients. Another thing which we realized was someone.
Sorry, Council Sadak, I just want to draw your attention. Your time is running out.
Okay.
If we begin to wind up.
I'm finishing now. I'm finishing on one thing about, I was talking about international affiliation or cooperation with our clients, our colleagues, international affiliations. That's what I was talking about, which was the last point. And I was talking about the effect and the importance which we benefited out of the pandemic. And I was trying to say that, you know, it was new areas which came in because normally it wasn't our area of practice, but we had already prepared for that, like pharmaceuticals and in other areas which I cannot mention. And we really get referrals and work for those. So you need to prepare yourself for someone who's saying area today. And last, I think it is the question of trying to understand your client. A lot of you said about, I want to speak about how you take care of the money, how you pay your associates, whatever. This has been spoken about, but overall, I think it is one thing which I will say, which we believe in, is just teamwork as a firm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. Thank you very much, Council. Covering the areas of diversification of practice and sharing your experience on personal experiences on business continuity. You know the story that you gave us about how the office had to close for some time and your ability to continue functioning even the next week. Thank you very much for that. We are now going to move on to our next speaker. But before we move on to our next panelist, I would like to ask the participants to post their questions in the Q&A and not in the chat. In the Q&A so that we can be able to pick them up from there and bring them to the attention of the panelists when we get to the plenary. Our next speaker is going to be Mr. Council Apollo Makuya. And Council Apollo Makuya is going to talk about pre and post disruption, preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. Over to you, Council Apollo.
Thank you very much, Eva. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I also join the others in thanking the East African Law Society for organizing this, but also for requesting me to share some experiences from Max in dealing with the changing world, a world that has been hit by the pandemic, but also a world that is full of change and uncertainty globally. Thank you very much. I have listened very carefully to the presentations by Mr. Chacha, Mole, and Mr. Sadok, and I'm very grateful for them because in many ways they have made my work much easier. Their examples are not very dissimilar from our experience in Marx. And if I were to be writing a judgment, I would say I have nothing very useful to add. In fact, if I were to relate to a recent development in Uganda, I would say that Chacha stole my file and ended up saying things that I would have said. Stealing of files in the judiciary is something that you may want to read about if you don't know the story already. But so I'm a partner with Max. Max is a full service law firm, member of the African Legal Network, and we have member firms in Tanzania, in Kenya, Rwanda, and other parts of Africa. Unlike other firms, as we've heard, we have been hit by these disruptions, and we have had to think outside the box, things that we never learned in law school on how to respond to crises, such as changes in technology, pandemics such as COVID-19, changes in certain legal regimes, and so on. But I must thank Chacha for talking about many of these things. He talked about managing costs, business continuity plans, business development, people and HR issues, the war chest, and how to manage expenses. At my law firm, beyond COVID, of course, we've had to deal with other changes since you talked about pre-disruption and post-disruption. Let me talk a little bit about pre-COVID. The legal world, just like any other professional environment, has experienced rapid changes in the last 10 to 20 years. One of them has been in technology and how to transform practice from a kind of manual kind of practice to one that is driven by technology. In terms of documents, production of pleadings and documents, contracts, and so on, manually, to how to store them, and also how to make presentation in courts of law. So there's been a lot of change there, and not very many law firms were prepared for this change. The ones that have been slow to this change have suffered. The ones that have been quick to adapt have gained tremendously. But beyond that, the environment in which we operate and the business transactions that we are handling on a day-to-day, many of these were not matters that were well prepared for in law school, given the way and the scope of the curriculum. So in that sense, it has been necessary for many law firms to adapt, to get new training, to relearn some of the principles and concepts they learned in law school, and to make themselves relevant so as to meet the new regulatory requirements, the new fields of practice in energy and infrastructure projects, banking, finance, telecommunications, and mergers and acquisitions. Many of these are new fields to many lawyers, and there's been a need for, even before COVID, for firms and lawyers specifically to adjust and learn new skills and ways of operating. But beyond this, of course, is the biggest hit has been COVID, which hit us from March of last year and led to lockdowns across the globe. In Uganda, the lockdown started from March and ended in August, but not completely. Up to now, there are some areas that have remained under lockdown. But at the height of the lockdown, many law firms were faced with many more or less similar issues. What do we do about our staff? First of all, work at home was a new phenomenon. Many people didn't have the capacity to coordinate their operations from home. They had to hurriedly acquire technology to achieve that. But beyond that, there were issues of reduced revenues. Many businesses who we support had lost revenues, and inevitably we also suffered, a sharp reduction in revenues. Now, not very many firms have the war chest that Chacha talked about, and this forced many to either lay off or reduce salaries substantially. So this was one of the areas. Of course, beyond that, we had the issues of some members of our staff contracting COVID, the virus, and we had to find ways of managing those that were affected. But sadly, I think Molly touched on this. Many of our staff members also lost relatives and friends. And although we didn't have cases of people who succumbed entirely, we had to deal with this situation in an empathetic way. So it was a period that required us as a firm to change in the way we manage the business or the professional service, because now we had to interact more often. We had to involve junior lawyers in many of our meetings so that we worked together in addressing these issues. But I think it was Sadok who talked about the clients and how they were affected, some of them having to close shop. And this now required us to find a way of how to relate to these kind of situations. Our responses were to organize free advisory services to many on how to respond, how to restructure their businesses. In the field of banking, we had to more or less undertake voluntary and pro bono services to advise on how to deal with restructuring and so on. So the lockdown of operations also presented other problems with people working at home, especially the young lawyers, the junior lawyers. There was a challenge of training. How do you train somebody who's at home? And how do you mentor them? On this, we responded through, again, technology. Before the lockdown, many people hadn't experienced the utility of Zoom meets, Zoom meetings or virtual meetings. And I think through this, we were able to reach out in a way to these young members of our staff and to continue the training processes. So very quickly, we can now talk about pre-disruption. Like I said, law, like other professions, is an always changing profession. So one that requires constant and continuous learning and monitoring of trends, both in country, regional, and also globally. So even pre-disruption, I mean, we don't know what will come tomorrow. The other day it was terrorism. Now it is the pandemic. We don't know what will come to disrupt businesses in the next few years. But continuous monitoring and studying of trends, both local and international, would be very, very helpful. Having policies on health and safety is now more than ever before, very, very important. But also constant learning. What you learned in law school, 10 years, 5 years ago, is not enough to take you through the changing periods that we face. I'm sure many of you understand how even before COVID, the clients generally were asking for more, but paying less, more for less. So you have to adjust on how to send out bills that meet the client's expectations, but also producing, things and documents and contracts and work in a more efficient and cost-effective way. Post-disruption, I think that I can only add to what my colleagues have already said. We need to dwell on knowledge building. We need to build knowledge centers within our firms to see how we can be innovative based on the knowledge that we acquire from our experiences. With regard to COVID, COVID is not yet behind us. I know that some countries have started immunization, but there's still a long way to go. And because of that, the effects of COVID are going to linger on for a foreseeable period, maybe 1, maybe 2 years. And this is why the idea of savings and creating that war chest, reflections on how to manage your expenses and so on are very crucial. But I think one thing that has been touched on very ably is the question of technology and how to use technology to give us a speedier, more efficient ways of operation. One of the technologies is the document management system. This allows you to use a cloud-based platform to store and retrieve very quickly information. For law firms, small law firms, this might be a bit expensive, but there are different costs and different size that is within reach. Pardon? Have I run out of time?
Yes, we're having a small problem with your connection, but you're also running out of time. Cancel.
Okay, very, very quickly, handling of client matters, empathy and being creative about billing, I think has already been touched on. But let me end up by saying that one of the best things for us that has emerged out of this COVID experience is the way of utilization of these kind of platforms, webinars, virtual meetings, Zoom meetings. It has been able, instead of flying to London or flying to the US to meet facilitators to undertake trainings, we found that training using web-based platforms have been very, very useful, but it has also enhanced our collaboration with international and regional law firms. I mean, in a space of minutes, you're able to get people together from across the world and at a very small cost. I think that if we can embrace that, even within the region, we can go a long way. I think let me end there, but I'll be happy to attend to any questions that our participants may have.
Thank you very much, Council. I think that you have shared very good experience on the preparedness that you had for the disruptions, but also the benefits that have come from some of these disruptions, particularly technology. I see that sharing from your experience from Max, the technology disruptions have also been of a benefit to you. Today, you can have meetings with your international partners without necessarily having to be physically present, which of course has the cost benefits that accrue as well with it. So allow me to move over to the next panelist, who's Philip Sanyang from Juba, Southern Sudan. Please tell us your experience, share your experience in managing law firms in difficult environments and emerging economies. We have 10 minutes, so I would like to request that we stick to those 10 minutes so that we can have a very good plenary session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Am I visible? Can you hear me that side?
Yes, we can hear you very well, and you're very visible.
Thank you so much, Eva, for this wonderful moderation. thanks to this Law Society and applaud to guest speaker tonight, Judge Odera. It's a wonderful keynote and breaking point because of the background of your experience. I've been given a difficult subject, a topic, which is wide, but because it was related to where I come from South Sudan, as mentioned by the moderator earlier, and managing law firms in difficult environments and emerging economies. You might have heard, you've known, you've read about South Sudan for the last 15, 16 years and 20-something years. It remains indeed a very difficult environment and continues to be a difficult environment, both politically, economically, socially, and environmentally, exactly. So as tasked to break on this point, I've had a few transitions from a couple of law firms for the last 13, 14 years. And the same trend of building on resilience within this difficult environment has never changed. On that aspect, I will talk on three main aspects of surviving or living or building on working in a difficult environment like South Sudan. And these will be revolved on human resource, especially as someone discussed and Molly mentioned some of it. Systems, Molly mentioned on it, relationships and networking. These are focus that have made or have been tested to keep someone or to keep a farm or law firm in existence in South Sudan, considering the environment. You might have had background of where the law stands now, the society stands, the bar system stands in South Sudan, with a few conflicts here and there. That itself has not changed the trend of the common best practices of a law firm regionally and domestically here. On the first aspect of building a strong team, which is the human resource aspect, this is a key test of starting point. Law firms are manned by people, law firms are manned by advocates, and these are the same people that if you build on, will keep you trained, will keep you moving on. The trend that has happened on the story that has been going on is
Philip seems to be having a problem with his connection.
When you have a strong team, it keeps you going and keeps you in business as a firm and as a team. These include the legal and administrative, legal and support team. If you've capitalized and invested and empowered your chances of, so it relates to the subject. So only choose the right team, picking the right team, building the right team, and empowering the right team. You are ensured that this is the break-up point, because this is the heart of the farm, this is the heart of the industry, this is the heart of your business. The second aspect is effective systems. Effective systems, every institution, every environment, there must be a system that you work on, system internally from the office, system internally to your clientele, system internally to the institution that you work with. This, if they are marked and properly structured, they convert keeping you in the business, they convert to having you in business, and they convert to your business itself. In this environment, we've taken that if it's difficult, make money out of it. If it's pandemic like the COVID pandemic 2020, we say let's make money out of the COVID, and let's make money out of COVID. This is a thin line that people try to break through, people try to cut across, to you to remain in business. The third aspect is on relationships. You know, South Sudan, whereby the lack of infrastructures from the internet itself, there's no facilities, the institutions are not functioning well, and generally there's a bit of on and off. So if you look at that situation and that environment itself, what do you rely on here? You rely on relationships and networks. How do you build relationships? You focus on communications. You maybe send an email now tonight by a client from Nairobi, from West Africa, and you may have a reason of not replying for the next 3, 4, 5 days. That reason itself is what you tackle with effective systems and communication, building on communication. How you relate to the clients, how you relate with your networks, how you relate with your colleagues, and the work environment itself. Second, there's a follow-up and tracking. If you cannot track your clients, you cannot track your work environment, your follow-ups, this also takes you out of the position you should have been as a person. As a firm, if you invest in communication, if you invest on proper administrative system, and then you are sure to get out of the bracket. The fourth aspect system also is management. You know, law firms these days, there's a bit of shifts of, you may have a partner here and tomorrow he shifts to another firm. You may have a partner staff here, tomorrow he shifts to another firm. So there's a way of building on structures that will remain and will remain, and those identifies with you as a firm. So if you build on proper management structures from administrative to the top management to administrative, how you handle your outdoors, then you are sure of navigating through such hot and difficult environments like South Sudan. I will touch briefly on digitalizing or technology as a key factor in this industry. You may not know that most of the work that is being done now is being done digitally. Law firms were forced to close, people were forced to work from home, some people were forced to work from their fields, you're forced to work on the street, maybe on your phone, on your laptops, because of the challenges that were brought by the pandemics. Here it's not the same. Here has been the last 15, 16 years, we've had the same challenges. But of course, investing in technology and utilizing technology as a factor, as a bond, as a key to maneuver you through this difficult environment has been a success story to many firms. And from our perspective as a young and partners, technology has played a key role in whatever we do, from how we relate to our clients, how we relate to ourselves, and how we do outreach. That has been a very successful tool that if you focus yourself, you invest in, and then you're sure to maneuver and get out. Networks, you know, originally, South Sudan has emerged from so many conflicts, so many wars, and the institutions that are not functional. So if you look at working from our board, working from Uganda, working from Kenya, there's been a chance of the relationship and the working that have been built to keep the workflow that we're doing here with our regional partners in Kenya, in Sudan, in Abuja, and Botswana working. So this has laid the ground that networks, relationships have kept farms, have kept us, has been an experienced tool that we use in South Sudan to keep us moving. Generally, the environment that people work in here in South Sudan, the environment that people work in where we are now, is purely relying on common best practices of the law. And common best practices of the law here is the get out point. This is the exit point that law firms and firms have capitalized on to handle the daily activities. This itself, if you consider and how to as a firm, how to survive in the market here, it's on those bases. So I will throw in the last part, which is if you look at facilities and mapping out and improving clients on your relation with clients, that itself gives a feedback on what are you getting out of it. Because the biggest part of it is a client that keeps in business. It's how you relate with the client that keeps in business. It's how you connect with the client that keeps in business. So if all these things are mapped and efficiently followed up and efficiently addressed, and then you're very sure of getting it right in this difficult environment of South Sudan. Law firms are emerging, and with this emerging law firm, emerging economies like South Sudan, most of the things are not happening right. Most of the things are not being seen right. Most of the things are not growing. So how do you maneuver from that angle of a startup and that angle of breaking through in such a shoddy and such a startup economy? It's having systems in place, having the right people in place. I believe up to that point, we can follow up with questions, but I'll say that a difficult environment requires difficult decisions, difficult people, proper structures, proper institutions, and effective systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Phillips, for that presentation. You talked about the power of technology and the power of networks, but more importantly, the thing that caught my mind, caught my ears, was let's make money from these 21st century challenges and disruptions. Well, we'll have probably a more detailed discussion, because I see so many questions are coming in from the attendees on what are the emerging areas from which lawyers can make money. We are now going to move over to Abdul. Abdul is going to talk to us. Councillor Abdul Mutoka is going to talk about adapting to disruptions, best practices for small and emerging law firms. Council Abdul, I saw you have a PowerPoint presentation. I'd like to remind you that we have only 10 minutes for you, and I would be very glad if you stuck to that time so that we can have a plenary and address some of the thematic areas that the participants have raised in their Q&A. Over to you, Council Abdul. Council Abdul, can you please start? Council, if you could begin to speak through your presentation, we cannot hear you.
Hello, Eva. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you. Now we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know if you can share my PowerPoint document.
I will ask Achilles. Achilles, please share the presentation on screen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Perhaps Council can send me the presentation via my email so that I'm able to upload the same from my end.
I sent it to the general email. Okay, I will resend it right now. Okay.
Can we give you rights to share, Abdul? Would that make it easier for you?
Yeah. I sent the document to David and
Okay.
Achille as well.
So Achilles, can you pull up the document and share it with the rest of us on screen?
Okay, maybe I can start without.
Yes, Council, I'd like to request that you actually speak through your presentation, just like the rest as we wait to see it on the screen.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for this invitation. First of all, I would like to begin by defining the subject, talk to how we can adapt to disruptions. So the first thing is to define what is the notion or the concept of disruption. The disruption that I will be talking right now, it is technological disruption. So the disruptive innovation, we need to have three things to have a disruption. We have, first of all, a market opportunity. and second, an innovation, and third, a creative disruption. When disruption comes is to bring to the market an innovation, something, a new way of resolving an old problem that existing in the society. Disruptions bring, even if if it is a technological disruption, even if we don't like to being disrupted, but disruptions allows to have a solution which is simpler, faster, and cheaper. An example that I can give is the creation of bulbs. Bulbs, when bulbs come and people used to use candles, so this was something new and something which was disruptive at that time. And giving another example in our times, it's the example of the startups, the technological startups. I can give, for example, the example of Uber. Uber, when it comes to disrupt the taxi sector, this was something new in the market because Uber proposed a new technology, and this was a fast, and efficient on-demand car service. But this brings to the market solutions to have a cab in a cheaper way, I can say, and faster, and in a simpler way. You need only to have your telephone and to call the car, and in few minutes the taxi is there. I can give also another example is for Airbnb. Airbnb is a platform to when you can book rooms instead of taking a hotel. So this also disrupted the markets of hosting or hotel market, and but this brings to the customer a solution. I've seen the PowerPoint. Okay, this is good. So we can go directly to the revolution to see what technology can bring in the market. So I have prepared an example of two financial companies. Here we have a Dutch bank and Stripe. Stripe is actually a fintech. And Dutch bank, as you may know, is a top-notch multinational and was founded in 1970. And here Stripe is a small fintech founded in 2011. And you may know now that the valuation of Stripe, it's 95 billions, where Dutch bank today is a valuation of 20 billions. This is the revolution that is brought by the technological disruption. So, as lawyers, and in our own market, we will be, and this is a certainty, we will be disrupted by newcomers, by new law firms, by new legal tech, and this will disrupt the market. And if we will not adapt, we need to adapt to this technological environment. So. Winter is coming. I passed very, very fast on this, and we can go directly to the deal breakers. So, what is the deal breakers for small and emerging law firms. So I have identified 4 problems that we have. We have limited experience, we have inadequate solutions, we have poor time management and lack of knowledge. But for this, we have also some levers. So what I can give as tips for small law firms and emerging law firms, it's first of all, you need to learn from the best. Many lawyers do not take time to go to the big law firms to see what is done there and to learn from them. And second, you have also to study the market. Third, we have to automate processes. So this is, in terms of technology, it is very important, and we cannot, today, we cannot continue to serving our clients without automating our processes. And fourth is to specialize in a specific area of expertise. We have small law firms which are generalists. They are doing everything. And I think it is very important, if you are a small or emerging law firm, to know how to specialize. And how now, with this situation of technological disruptions, how to survive? How can we survive as law firms? I have presented five ways we can adapt with the technological disruptions. First of all, I advise to adopt new methods of legal practice. New methods of legal practice. You need, for example, to have a CRM. A CRM is a way to communicate with clients. Is an online platform where you can communicate and you give there all your reports on cases. You give there all the file situation of your clients, and the clients do not need to disturb you with questions. With all things are online, and they can go there and to see everything. Second, inquire on new forms of technology. I have given here an example of Ross Intelligence. Ross Intelligence is also an intelligent platform, an online platform where you can we can go there and you can make a legal search, and you will have automatic solutions. Third, identify new opportunities in the legal market. And here we have many opportunities with the situations or the context where we are right now. I have given the example of insolvency. Insolvency is a particular area, especially in these pandemic situations. Fourth is provide a value proposition to clients. Clients need simpler and faster solutions. You need to know that and to act accordingly. Fifth, better market your services. Here, many lawyers do not take time to do a marketing and to know there are many ways today to market our service, and I have given the example of doodle videos, for example. So yeah, I think I can end here my presentation. Just I will give an example of how you can adapt the situation in 1 minute or 2 minutes, if Eva is allowing me to do that, is to give how you can adapt in the situation. I have given our own example in trust juris chambers. We have created with some lawyers in other countries how we can build a new form of law firms. We need, first of all, to identify a problem. This is the first thing to do. we have identified a problem of we have understood that very few law firms are specialized and dedicated to international players, to international players is including international organizations, NGOs, multinational companies, of course, but also states, to how to advise states, how to advise international organization, and this we must think about it. And after, because we have many legal texts in the international practice, I can say. So in Africa, let's look the number of treaties and derivative instruments that are existing in Africa, but there are very few law firms who are specialized in this sector. And finally, we gave a solution, and this solution is to have a trans-African law firm, for example, and this trans-African law firm specialized in international economic and public laws, dedicated to the African continent, focused on international players' transactions, understanding the international context issues. But this is, I can say, is how you can adapt in a situation, and you give a value proposition to your clients, and overall, you give also a technological solution to handle and to respond to the needs of clients. Thank you very much. I think I have taken more time than expected, and I will be happy to respond to questions if any. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Abdul. Excellent presentation and very good insights in offering specialized services. And you had a particular slide that seems to answer all the questions, most of the questions that the participants were raising about how to survive. What is there to benefit from this pandemic? Thank you very much, Councillor Abdul, for that presentation. So without much further ado, Mr. President, I would like to open plenary with your permission. I'd like to open plenary. I will take, we have sort of eaten into time, Mr. President, is that okay? Can I open plenary now?
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead and open plenary.
Great, thank you very much. So we've sort of eaten into some time, but if you'd allow me, we'll probably run slightly ahead of time by about 5 to 10 minutes. So please bear with us. Participants and panelists, please bear with us. I am going to invite participants to raise their hands, and we're going to take only three questions from the participants raising their hands, and then we'll take a few more from the Q&A, and then we'll hand over and distribute them to the panelists as they are. So participants, please raise your hand if you have a question, and then we can allow you to speak. I'll ask you to limit yourselves, introduce yourself, and please state your question very clearly. Please let us have specific questions. We may not necessarily have commentary at this point because of time, but please have specific questions. And if it's to a specific panelist, please do let us know so that we can capture that. Other than that, we will allocate it to the panelists that we think touch that particular thematic area. So participants, over to you. And Achilles, I don't know whether you're with us. We need to run this. We need to let participants speak, those that have raised their hands. As we wait for the participants, I would like to pick some questions from the Q&A. We had a specific question from Salvatore, a gentleman called Salvatore, I presume his counsel. Are there any opportunities that have been brought by the pandemic in the field of legal practice? And I know that we had two speakers that touched on this, and I will ask that we have Counsel Apollo Makubia tell us about the opportunities that he sees coming out of this pandemic, specifically the COVID-19 pandemic. And we'll also take thoughts from Counsel Abdul on this one. on the opportunities that are present from the pandemic. That will be the first set of questions. The other second questions that we had, second key issue that we had that was raised was around specialization of firms. Does specialization make sense anymore? In these times when we have to survive, how do we survive? Does specialization make sense? And we had, specifically, we had Godwin, I think Godwin is from Uganda, asking that question. We will ask that Council Molly, you touch in that area. Does specialization make sense anymore for us as practitioners? Do we have any hands raised? Achilles? If we don't, I want to hand over to the panelists to speak about those two areas.
We do not have anyone raising the hand, so I can proceed with the panelists.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'd like to hand over this question raised by Salvatore, who would like to speak the view first of Council Apollo Makubuya. Are there any opportunities that have been brought about by this COVID-19 pandemic in the field of legal practice? Let's hear from you, Council Apollo.
Yes, Eva, thank you very much. And, you know, that's the thing that we benefit from these kind of forums. We look at disruptions not only as setbacks, but setups for comebacks, if I were to use that kind of language. In the case of comebacks, we are seeing opportunities in the field of business recovery, supporting businesses or clients generally to cope and thrive actually within these difficult circumstances. So taking banks, for example, we see that they have many customers who need advisory services on how to restructure debt or equity, or to form new mergers or acquisitions generally. There are so many opportunities of that kind of legal practice at the moment. The other area would be, of course, insolvency. If you haven't been a practitioner in the field of insolvency law, this is an opportunity for you to study, not only to advise your clients to go and file insolvency, but how to avoid, you know, going into an insolvent situation. So business rescues is really big at the moment, and I think that it's a great opportunity. The other opportunity, which I touched on already, is really new opportunities to learn at less the cost, you know, without having to travel to attending all these types of trainings. For example, now in Uganda, there's this new momentum on the oil and gas sector and business. There are so many opportunities to learn online how to position yourself as an oil and gas practitioner, so that once the FID is reached, so there will be so many opportunities on environment, on energy, on storage, on all sorts of things. So the opportunity I see here with this technology is for law firms, small or big or medium, using the technology to upskill, to become more knowledgeable about these kind of areas. These are the two areas that I can point out, but there could be others. Also, specialization. I think the speaker, the panelist who talked last, talked about how to adapt to the situation and see yourself, instead of being a general practitioner, to use this opportunity to either form partnerships with other law firms, but with skill sets that are more specialized and more focused on specific areas, because this is where the demand is going to be. It's very unrealistic to expect big operators to come to a general practice, a firm with a general practice, to ask about tax advisory services, for example. So this is an opportunity to look and see what kind of, if you're a small law firm, to see how you can combine forces so that you have skill sets that are more specialized.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Council Apollo. And I want to now move to Council Abdul. Council Abdul, you've heard from Council Apollo. He's talked about areas of oil and gas, insolvency and corporate rescue. He's talked about debt restructure. He's talked about technology as the emerging areas that we can prepare for. And you talked to us about best practices for small and emerging law firms. Nobody wants to remain small and emerging. What are those areas? I think, and you touched some of them in your presentation. What are those areas that we need to prepare ourselves for coming out of the pandemic? Where can we make the money from? Where can we prepare for growth? What are those areas? Over.
Eva, thank you very much. I think there are traditional, I can say traditional areas of practice where you can make money. It's about energy, oil, and electricity. I can say it's about also telecommunications. What I can say right now with this this context, I think lawyers, especially small and emerging law firms, should think out how to develop new areas of practice. I see, for example, a new area where a few people are specialized in, and I can say electronic, for example, electronic communications, electronic platforms, electronic also platforms like Alibaba, like Amazon, like these are new clients for us, and we can see how to, because they are working worldwide, and we can see how to better or even not better, but even to serve them. I can say also there are some also new ways of dealing with clients, and in particular areas of practice. I think also about how can we help the big clients that are operating especially online. Those I think are specific areas of practice where with these pandemics and new contexts we can specialize in and try to serve those new clients for us, but also for local clients. I can say how to serve all clients who are marketing their business online. These we have local SME and that are selling their products online. So I think this is a new area of practice where we can specialize in and serve the clients. I don't know if I have clearly respond to those questions.
Oh yes, you have. And, we also had a lot of content drawing from the presentation that you gave us, especially that survival slide that you had. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Council Abdul. I want to now move over to Council Molly. Council Molly, you made a presentation on best human resource practices. And when we are talking about survival in COVID and post-COVID times, the temptation for small and emerging firms is to scatter themselves. And even when you look at the chat and the content, the questions that are being posted on the chat, the question is about specialization. Is specialization, does it make sense anymore? We've had people talking about specialization. What does specialization mean in terms of our, HR practices? And what are the benefits of specialization for us as law firms, for us as practitioners? Over to you, Councillor Molly.
Thank you, Councillor Eva. I think actually Apollo kind of touched on this issue, but maybe I'll elaborate further. So, of course, specialization still makes sense because you can't assume to be an expert if you're not an expert yourself, and you can't give advice if you're not an expert. But I think it's also important to change with a changing world. You know, today we are looking at things like Bitcoin, online transactions. The likes of Amazons are the ones that are making lots of money today. So you as a lawyer, how do you place yourself in that ecosystem? So I think specialization still makes sense, but also it's important to embrace that there are new things that are changing, and we also need to learn and adapt to these new changing trends. When you talk about specialization, I'll say, I think I mentioned the issue of diversification. But when you diversify as a firm, it doesn't mean that me as Molly, I'll specialize in criminal law, then specialize in civil law, specialize in corporate finance and banking transactions, etc., etc. It means that if you have a firm, it's good to diversify and probably bring on more partners or employ associates that are good in these areas. I've had issues. We are a purely commercial law firm, and we've had instances where clients get into criminal issues and you're not able to support them that much. But if you diversify, for example, if I have a criminal practice department, that resolves the issue. So, of course, I wouldn't advise young law firms or startups to venture into this. But as you grow, it's also good to to create various solutions in your law firm. So I think probably when I talked about diversification, people thought that, okay, I'll be a criminal lawyer today, tomorrow do corporate finance, and tomorrow do mining transactions, do infrastructure, energy. No, it's not what I meant. What I mean is you specialize as a firm. And specializing as a firm is bringing on different expertise, but also invest in capacity building for your own internal associates, so that people are well versed with the new developments, like I just mentioned. I hope that is clear.
Yes, it is, Councillor Molly. I think what you make very clear to us is that as we seek to specialize and position ourselves, we must be also, ready to invest in training and capacity building for our teams. I'll now move to Councillor Anyang. Councillor Anyang, let's hear your parting shots on, you talked about managing law firms in difficult environments. And I know that where you are located in Juba, you shared that there have been certain difficult circumstances for you as a law firm. Tell us what it means, what the pandemic means, or what these challenging times have meant for you as a law firm in the area of people management, staff contracts. Now that people can work from home, for you, what does it mean in the area of staff contracts? What should we be looking at as we lead law firms? What areas should we be mindful of in the staff contracts?
Thank you so much. I think I've had a few challenges with my network, the reason why we manage of difficult environments of where we're working. I think the pandemic has hit almost every other sector of every firm. And the biggest part with this is associates and partners have managed and gone through. But the biggest parts of our contracts is the staff that are on long-term contracts. And for you to wake up one morning and terminate that contract with the challenges that come with the pandemic, that has been proven to be challenging, especially with staff that are pure relying on the jobs that are in now. And the second part this pandemic has hit on is, of course, the general operation, the general returns, and the returns with most clientele who have been sent off by business and out of business because of the pandemic, which has not reduced on the turnovers over and over again. But then of the way we maneuvered, the way it has maneuvered is to streamline on areas that you require staffing still, and areas that do not require much, because people can multitask now. The challenge with that is where do you cut cost, and where do you invest save responsibilities all at the same time. So big wise, terminating contracts has been a headache in most situations, especially for associate partners who are brought on board for specific purpose, for specific works. And that has been a challenge because we don't know when the pandemic is ending. It has been there, and it may be there for the next 10 years, 100 years. You never know. So the transition people are in now is a difficult transition because we don't know who goes where and who comes in and how to sustain it, because the same work that the same person is doing will create a gap in the absence of the same person. So how do you balance the two of what goes in, what comes out, and how do you maintain the balance? Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I like the spin on the equal opportunities and the gender balance. Thank you very much, Phillips. Our last panelist, Sadok. Sadok, I would like to draw from your experience and your parting shots on the issue of leveraging on ICT for your international partnerships. Even beyond the international partnerships, even for local partnerships, what does it mean for investment? Is it too late to invest at this point in the pandemic? Sadok, let's hear from you very briefly before we give the last opportunity to our keynote address speaker to close for us, and we hand over to the president. But before that, panelists, I would like to ask you to turn on your videos. We need to take a photo for Twitter for purposes of this call. So please turn on your cameras. We'd like to see you. And over to you, Sadok, to take us through that parting shot. Council Abdul and Council Apollo would like to ask you to turn on your cameras, specifically for the photo for Twitter. Please turn on your videos. Thank you. Council Abdul, I don't see your video on. Panelists, it seems we have lost Council Sadok. Is not on the call anymore. We seem to have lost him. Please allow me to ask for a parting shot from Honorable Chacha. Honorable Chacha, there was something about, you shared experience about the workspace, how you now had more people working from home and what it meant for your landlord. Tell us what this whole pandemic and the changes in technology, the emerging technologies, means in terms of rationalizing office space and physical presence for the law firms. Give us your parting shot on that one. Should we invest in space? Does it make sense? Is it a one size fits all? Is it a worthwhile investment? Should it be a case by case? Tell us.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's a decision which every law firm has to make. But one thing I think, as Abdul had said, is disruption. As to whether we will need all the space that we presently occupy is a matter out for the jury to determine. Speaking from our own experience, at any given time, most of our spaces are unoccupied. Indeed, it is the common spaces like the meeting rooms and the conference facilities which are much more useful, because those spaces have now been turned into locations from where we can either conduct court proceedings or we meet clients by way of on the Zoom platform or the Teams platform. So disruption, certainly there is disruption, and I'm glad, having heard what the participants and the panelists have shared, it is a turning point in how we know practice. And the challenge to all of us is how can we grab it and make the best out of it. And I'm sure that the way we are trained, we are versatile, and we should be able to adopt and control where we are going and how we want to go. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm very grateful for having given me an opportunity to just share my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chacha. Thank you very much, panelists. Thank you for an extremely engaging discussion. an extremely rich discussion that we've had today that not only leaves us enriched, but leaves us thinking about how to prepare for tomorrow and beyond. At this point, I'd like to hand over to the ELS President. Mr. President Bernard, please give us your closing remarks and a vote of thanks to our esteemed panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much first to Council Eva Kentaro for moderating an excellent moderation. Thank you so much. As I had indicated, I think you need to do more moderation. You've done a very good job. I would like to thank our keynote speaker and all the panelists for sharing their thoughts. It has been worthwhile. We've had an attendance of almost about 200, which is good. Before this, I think we had an attendance of about 400. So increasingly, we are seeing more engagement at ELS level. And I would like to thank our participants and attendees who have spared time to attend to this webinar. There will be more webinars. Every month we have about 3 webinars. And as you attend, please also remember to pay your subscription fees and membership fees. We're able to do this because you pay the membership and subscription. So we are extremely grateful. Thank you again, and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have yourselves a nice weekend. Thank you. Bye.